What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Having Said That show. I'm your co-host Adi alongside Jay.
What's up, guys?
And guys, I don't think I've ever been more excited for an episode because today we have one of the most significant and prolific figures in the sneaker industry. He's worked with people like Lady Gaga, Jay-Z, Kareem Benzema. He was the former head of the innovation lab at YEEZY, and he's currently working on revolutionizing the sneaker space with his new company, Factory Lab. Guys, Omar Bailey is on.
All right, let's go. Let's go.
Thank you so much for being here, Omar.
Thanks for having me, man. That was an incredible introduction. I love it.
Well, you
come back more often. Yeah.
This is the first thing you're doing since you landed in Bombay, so I feel like I got to return the energy. Thank you for coming, man.
Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries. I'm excited to be here.
The first thing we do on our show, just to get the guests loosened up, know that we don't do the regular interviews. We kind of like to break our guests out of their shell. We ask them for their most controversial opinion.
Okay.
Do you have one prepared for us?
Oh, shit. A controversial opinion.
It could be related to the field you work in or anything random, anything you want at all.
Let me see. Man, I'm like the most least controversial person like in the world. For me, it would probably be something around, and I don't know how controversial this would be, but really just around like, believing in yourself. Like I've always had an issue with like, we grow up as kids, right? And like when you're kids, it's like you can, you're told you could be anything and you can do anything and all that. But then all of a sudden when you become an adult, like all that shit goes away.
Yeah.
And like that really bothers me. And like, and I talk to my friends, I talk to my wife about that stuff sometimes. And like, I don't know, it just really bugs me. It just feels like what changes? Like why? Because all of a sudden you're an adult, you can't follow your dreams, right? It's almost like there's this imaginary sort of like threshold or cutoff point that like, once you turn 18, now like, you can't be, like what you actually wanted to be. Like my wife, she wanted to be, a primate anthropologist, right?
Oh.
Like when she wanted to be Jane Goodall, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, but then like, she was told she could do that as a kid. And then like, she was like, oh, well, I just like didn't think that was realistic. I'm like, well, why is it not realistic? Like it is realistic. If that's what you want to do and you love it, like, and that's something you think you'll be passionate about, like go for it and do it. So yeah, my controversial opinion is about dreamers should always be allowed to dream and not necessarily it being cut off at because you're 18 or you're an adult or something like that.
That's awesome, man.
I think that is pretty controversial because, like you said, I think a lot of people have that belief of like when it's your cutoff time, whether it's mentally because of school or like you start a new job because you have to work.
Yeah.
There is like a threshold after which people are like, yeah, it's probably unrealistic for me to go and do that.
At some point of being an adult, I guess people start taking responsibility for the fact that, okay, man, I got to make my own money or I have a family to take care of. And if their dreams feel like too far-fetched for them to reach and also handle their business, they might give up on it.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're the living example of doing it. So
no, thank you, man. And I get that too, right? Like there's, priorities and there's different things that you have, whether it's your family or, whatever the case may be. But I think at the end of the day, if it's something that you really truly are passionate about and you love, then like you're gonna figure out a way to do it. If there's a will, there's a way to do it. And I'm a big believer in that. If it's not something you're passionate about, then you're just, I don't know, to me, it just feels like a waste of fucking time.
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I was reading a lot about you, and it seems like you've been in the sneaker space ever since you were a kid, like 7, 8 years old. Yep. And when you find something passionate like that, it never really feels like work, does it?
No.
Exactly.
It doesn't. No, when I started drawing sneakers as a 7-year-old, I never thought about it as a job. It was just something that I enjoyed doing. I'm 40, or 41 now, but I know I don't look like it. I got the baby face. But when I when I was growing up in Florida and born in New York, grew up in Florida, but started drawing sneakers. This is when the Air Jordans are really kind of jumping into the public markets really for the first time, and like lines were forming around stores, which is a very normal sight right now. Like when you think about it, right, it's a normal thing. But like in the early 90s, we never seen that before. That wasn't a thing. And then very shortly after, the violence came with it, kids getting beat up for their sneakers, stores being robbed, like all that kind of stuff. And my parents are from Jamaica. They came to this country in the 70s. And they, and they were just, like any family moving to America or coming to America, they're just trying to, you know, they're just trying to get their footing. They're trying to provide for their families and just create opportunities for their kids. So they didn't want me to get in any kind of trouble or anything bad to happen. So they didn't buy me the shoes.
Right.
But as a result of me not having them, I would draw them on paper. So like if I couldn't have the physical shoe that I wanted, Air Jordan or whatever, then I would, you know, at that time, East Bay magazine was really popular, where you'd get East Bay was free and it would show up and you'd see all the new shoe designs and stuff that's coming out, which I could never buy, never afford, but I could reference it. And then I would just draw and like create my own shoes. And that made me happy. And I just did that for a really, really long time and just kept doing it. And then ended up getting into art school, where I continued doing it, and I was dubbed the name the sneaker guy, which is actually the license plate on my car back in California.
Oh, that's sick.
And just stuck with it, and you know, met people along the way who supported me with it. You know, even before I went to art school, I went to a really bad middle school. This place called John F. Kennedy Middle, and just a little like kind of 101 for like in the States, right? Like usually
This is in New York or Florida?
This is in Florida.
Okay.
Now. So like usually like in like black communities in the state in America, like if there's a school and it's on like Martin Luther King Boulevard or like Malcolm X Boulevard, it's usually pretty bad. Like there's a like and that ain't nothing controversial about that. That shit is real. I went to John F. Kennedy Middle School, and it was a terrible place. Kids were like, you know, it was like fights every day, like girls beating each other up, like cutting each other with razor blades. It was wild. I mean, it was in the hood. Like it was some ghetto ass shit.
Damn.
And I went to school there, you know, and I'm a shy kid, and like, you know, I'm not in any trouble or anything, but that was like the place that I had to go to school at first, and it was fucking scary, you know, and like, but what got me through it was this ability to draw and sketch. So like kids thought I was cool because I could draw. So they asked me to draw their names in bubble letters and things like that. And I became friends with people. So it kind of kept me safe. It was almost like my pencil was like my shield against like me getting my ass whooped, right? So
That's
like
cool.
So being able to so that was like my earliest memories of like art kind of being this like defense mechanism for me. But then once I finally got out of that school and I went to this other art school in downtown West Palm Beach, where, you know, I went to school with white people for the first time, with like, you know, with Asian, Indian people, like people of different, you know, backgrounds and ethnicities. And that was exciting for me because everyone had their own ambitions. They were talking about education in college. I literally left one school where it was about survival, and it was about like, you know, just getting through the day and not getting hurt, to another school where like everyone is talking about where they're going to college and like their education and where they want to study and what they want to be when they grow up. So like when I went there, and my professors were like super encouraging and just really motivated me and being like, you can do this shoe thing. That was humongous. I had the support from my family at home, but then to get it at school was just like was the icing on the cake. And I just took that and ran with it.
I love that. Amazing.
Amazing.
It's I guess it's kind of game changing when like people, because your family will more or less always kind of support you, but it's game changing when people in your field kind of as like validate that idea that you have about yourself as well, right?
Yep,
for sure.
I'm sorry, this may feel like a bit of a tangent, but just because you mentioned that you were born in the Bronx, and I like going from one controversial opinion to another, I would love to know your top 5 hip hop artists, man.
Oh wow, we're gonna jump right in. Well, I'm an '80s baby, so
Okay.
You know, I don't know how old everybody in this room is, but you know, my opinion is probably gonna be a little different. I mean, for me, it's like, you know, Nas and Jay-Z, you got to throw in there. I've always been like a big Tupac guy, like even though he was West Coast and I was on the East Coast, always been, you know, I've it might be controversial for sure, but like I was never like the biggest like Biggie fan at all for whatever reason. So let me come back to him and see if he makes it into my top 5. But then when I moved down south, I really got it, like, and that was when like the South was just like, this was in the mid 90s going into like the 2000s, and like the South was just like bursting, man. So it was like T.I. and Young Jeezy and Outkast and all these guys.
Sick.
So like it's gonna be real hard for me not to mention any of those. I'd probably throw Outkast in there just as a group
for
as
sure.
like
Sure.
number 4, and then like maybe another Southern. Trying to think of like another, maybe one more
Man,
person.
old school T.I. was amazing. I loved T.I.
I probably would throw T.I. also as my 5th because he was super like important during my time, like when I was in high school going into college, because I was listening to his music nonstop, and I was driving, and I went to school in Ohio, so like when I would drive home in the summer, I would pass through Atlanta. So like I had a buddy of mine who went to college in Atlanta, so I got to go to like all the nightclubs that they were talking about and all the strip clubs that they talked about in their music. So that was pretty cool.
Sick.
And then so that's my 5. But then like an honorable mention would be like someone like Lil Jon, because like
shit. Okay.
forget like I don't even want to talk about like as an MC because he's not that. He's an entertainer, but like. The music that was coming out at that time in that crunk era was just so awesome.
It was fresh.
It was just so much stuff going on, and it was just like you had to be there to live. Actually, and I totally messed up. Like, gosh, my list is like bigger now. I gotta throw Kanye in there too, man.
That's what I was gonna come. So I had a similar list to yours. I would put Nas and Jay-Z up there, and then my top of all time is Kanye, and I wanted to kind of get into that with you because obviously you've had the chance to work with the man.
Yep.
And I don't even know what to ask. Like, what's that? The first time you met him? Can we go through that?
Oh yeah, that's a great story.
Let's do
too.
it.
Yeah. I feel like anyone who's like met Kanye or spent some time with him, they all have a first time I met Kanye story. And
I've never seen him smile so much on the show.
So the first time I met Kanye West was in 2019. I had, Adidas had reached out to me about this role that was starting to form around this innovation lab, this idea of an innovation lab, and like leading this team to like that could basically make his ideas real. Like as he's pumping out these ideas and thinking about it, a facility that can facilitate these concepts because he had a team of designers, and then I had a team of makers and builders. So then we would build, even though I had a design background, but I also had this background in developing and building footwear, being that I'd lived in, India and China and running shoe factories and all this stuff or whatever. So anyway, so I expressed interest in the role for sure. Like it was a no brainer. I was like, of course, Yeezy. Yeah, this is like the Super Bowl of opportunities. Why would I not say yes to this? So this was like in late 2018, and then they kind of went quiet, and I was like super excited, but then didn't hear anything for like a couple months, and I'm like, oh my god, is this like gonna happen? What's going on? And then you see him in the news because like this thing is going on and that thing is going on. He's in the hospital and this, and I'm like, oh my god, what's happening? And then I want to say like in February they reached out and they said, okay, we got a date. We want you to come out in March to come interview for the role, and we're going to show you everything that's going on. And it was just like this perfect window that opened up. And now I understand, after being in it for a few years, like how these things happen, because it's constant roller coaster, and like and then windows of opportunity open up, and they're usually generally short, and then it closes up, and then you continue, and then that's just kind of the rhythm of how like that world worked with him. So I go to LA. I go out to this area just outside of Calabasas called Canoga Park. There was a facility that they had set up there. It's pretty funny too, because I drove by it twice. Like, is this the place? Like, it was a old furniture studio. Like they sold furniture there, and it still has the signage on it. So KB Furniture, it was hidden in plain sight. So they weren't going to put like a big sign that said Yeezy or anything like that, right? It's just a black building, KB Furniture, windows are blacked out, whatever. Drove past a couple times. Then they were like, no, this is the building. You got to go in. There's like security guards, all that stuff in there, whatever. And I go sit down in this room. And then there's a couple interview starts. A few Adidas executives come in. I have, my chat with them, chat with another one. And then I end up, after like the second interview, they come back into the room. The GM at the time, Jim Anfuso, shout out to Jim, comes in the room, and he's like, I'm taking you to Calabasas right now to go meet Kanye. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't think in a million years the guy. I didn't think he was around.
Yeah.
I thought he might like the guy's like in the south of France, chilling on the beach somewhere. I had no idea like if he was gonna be there. However, and this is a lesson to like young people or people in general when when you're when you really want something. I still came prepared as if I was gonna meet him. I had my portfolio with me. It was all digital. I had it on my laptop, on my iPad, and I really thought through it. And I thought through like, okay, if I have an opportunity to talk to him, like, what are we going to talk about? And like, I don't necessarily want to try and like spark a conversation out of thin air.
Yeah.
I'd rather have something to put in front of him, and that's just going to make it a lot easier. He's a high functioning creative. I am as well.
Yeah.
So like it's going to be a lot easier for us to build a natural, organic conversation if I have something to show him, and then just let it kind of go where it goes from there. And that's what I did. So when he called and said, we're going to go meet him, we get to Calabasas, and I had to wait 3 hours for him, even though he was in the room next door the whole time recording music. But finally he walks in. So this was in March 2019. He had just did Coachella with DMX.
Yeah.
His hair was red. He had on like this purple like sweatsuit. He had his gold grill on. And like he comes walking in, and he had like a plate of chicken in his hand, like he was eating his lunch. And he just had a plate of food, and then he walks in and he sits down, and he was super nice. And was just like, yo, it's really, it's nice to meet you. And he sits down, and then kind of almost has like this baffled look for a minute, like, okay, what are we doing? Kind of thing. And then that's when I pull my portfolio out and put it in front of him and say, hey man, I want to share some of my work, with you. Like, this is what I'm here for. And like, and just want to show you some of my projects. And then he grabs the iPad. He's like, oh, dope. And then he starts flipping through, and then he starts asking me some questions. And like, then he sees things that reminds him of things. And then he starts sort of going off on like these creative tangents, telling me about these like crazy ideas that he has. And he was like, oh, I remember, Quentin Tarantino was telling me this and that. And he's just like named these like huge, like these crazy name drops. And like, and I'm just sitting there, I'm just like locked in, just listening and absorbing it all, and, speaking where I can. But it ended up being like this really organic and dope, like 45-minute conversation that was like uninterrupted. He was totally engaged. He wasn't like looking at his phone and wondering when the conversation was going to be over. It was just natural. And we just talked. And in the end, they hired me.
That's amazing.
I literally got hired on the spot. And
that's awesome.
That's how I became the head of the innovation lab at YEEZY.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
I think the natural progression from there is, what was the experience like working at the innovation lab? What was like your main thing that you're most proud of from it? And what was it like to collaborate with someone who has such a strong creative vision like Kanye?
Yeah, I mean, so I was there for 3 years, and it was a really important, I feel like it was like the 3 most important years of YEEZY. That at the time that business was sub 1 billion, like it was close, like maybe, I don't know, 600-700 million in revenue, something like that at the time. I'm not exactly sure of the numbers. But we ended up scaling it to like 3 billion in those 3 years. Right. And this was during COVID too, that we did that. So, I think a lot of that, we had an incredible team, not just my team of like makers and builders, but we had a great team of designers. We had a great team of engineers. We had a great team of like the folks behind the scenes who, ran all like the e-commerce platforms and the sales platforms, because everything we did was D2C drops. Right. And like, I think that was kind of new for the brand, at least for Adidas, in doing that, where like there wasn't a whole lot of retail that we were doing. Everything was about like, it was about building and driving energy, and Kanye played, obviously a massive role in creating that energy that existed around him. And like, so, we would do things like, he would 3D print the foam runner, and he'd go out and wear it in public for the first time, right? And people didn't know that it was 3D printed. Or, the 450 was 3D printed. The first time he wore it at Paris Fashion Week, and he's jumping over the puddle of water. And it's like, the reason why he's jumping over the puddle of water is because it was a 3D printed sole, right? And it was like the knit upper attached to it. So like, that was, so it was a full on team effort by everyone, Kanye included, with how we did it, and it worked, right? And I think a lot of it worked because like we were it wasn't a huge team. It was a small group of people in the grand scheme of things when you think about how that business scaled and how much it grew. And then to see how many people were actually behind it, it wasn't a huge amount of people. But I think we were just all kind of in cohesion in our roles and what we did, even though it was chaotic, because it was chaotic, right? Like I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It was very much like lots of peaks and valleys, lots of random shit that was happening.
What I found super interesting was in a lot of the articles I read about you, they point to your prowess with supply chain management. And I remember, I don't know if you do, Jay, back in the day when Kanye was on like the Zane Lowe interviews, the Breakfast Club interviews, the one thing he was always talking about was making the supply chain process so easy that he can sell things at like a $20, $30 price point, which he just recently did.
Yeah.
I feel like your role was integral in that aspect. Could you speak to that a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, he always had those ambitions to, I remember there was always meetings about his ambitions to like want to make the shoes cheaper and sell them cheaper. I know that there were there was always some friction from the brand, from Adidas, on that side of things.
Of course,
on that front for obvious reasons. But that was something that he always wanted to do, and he always pushed and always brought to their attention.
Was the foam runner like one of the cheapest Yeezys?
The slide was.
Yeah, the slide was.
But it ended up reselling for like crazy amounts. I think the slide was like $80 retail. I want to say the foam runner was like 120 maybe or something like
which
that.
is also like relatively
or something, if I remember. It was so long ago, but like but yeah, those, and I know he wanted to make the slide even a lot cheaper than that as well. That was had to be mutually agreed upon with Adidas too on that front. But no, I think the lab was an incredible resource. He had ideas, right, that he wanted to make real, and we had the ability to turn them around quickly and rapidly to get them in front of him so that he could make decisions on what we were going to continue to develop. And, it would be that multiplied by, dozen, 2 dozen. Like we could easily have a couple dozen work streams going on at the same time, all different concepts, everyone playing a different role in it, and it's all happening at the same time. Then there would be moments where like we're all working on the same thing at the same time. We're all, sprinting on one specific vision that he has. So it was always, a lot of that. So yeah, even though he had this, ambition to want to like democratize, the process as much as possible, which we did in Cody, Wyoming, and we could talk about that. I think what we did in the lab was kind of in the innovation lab was kind of the beginning of that.
I guess democratizing the process is a huge part of the ethos of Factory Lab as well.
Yep.
I guess I want to know when you made the decision to leave YEEZY and start Factory Lab and how that kind of came about.
But before you answer that question, we have your chai here.
Yes. My chai tea.
Yes, sir.
I used to get this when I lived out here, and when I lived in Delhi, designing shoes for Lotto, and they would bring me the masala chai tea with the little cookie. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And then they knew I loved that, and they would always have it for me out there every morning. So like, yeah, as soon as I touched it was like automatic. Like somebody asked me like, oh, what would you like to drink? I said, that's what I was like, oh my God. I haven't said those words in like 6 years. It just came out automatic. It's like my body like knew exactly where I was. Oh, nice. Okay. All right. I thought it was going to be like Starbucks or something. This is even better.
Starbucks doesn't do tea like this.
No?
This is an Indian like chain now that specializes in chai.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah, let's do it.
Let's do a taste test, then we'll get
the
into.
cookie along with it, but
No, it's all right. All right, here's the taste test. Nice and hot too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I like
Amazing.
that.
Okay, amazing.
Okay, so before we actually get into the Factory Lab stuff, I would love for you to kind of explain to the audience what Factory Lab is.
Yeah. So Factory Lab, FCTRY LAB, to be clear.
We have things for you as well if you need to pull anything out.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we can. We should definitely do a little show and tell. Let's do shoes. Why not? Yeah, let's do it.
Which one do you want first?
I mean, we got to start with the duck boot.
So,
Just give me the yellow one. We'll just go straight for the
whoa, man,
elephant.
this is
elephant
crazy.
in the room. I'll pass this around and let everyone look at it while I tell everybody what Factory Lab is. So Factory Lab is an independent footwear innovation lab, much like from a functionality standpoint, exactly kind of what I described at YEEZY, what it was, right? Like a facility where you have the ability to innovate and to like create footwear and to rapidly prototype footwear in a fast and efficient way. The goal is that you want to have full creative control over the thing that you're building creatively, and the best way to do that is by building it, right? Problem solving through making, and what that does is like that allows you to really understand what is feasible or not. And what I mean by that is, you know, a lot of people think a shoe factory, and this is just because people, you know, there's a lot of people out there who want to get into the shoe business and they think, oh, I need to find a factory that can build and create the shoe. That couldn't be any far from the truth. What you need is a development facility or a factory that thinks like a developer, meaning that when you have something new, like the duck boot, right? I mean, look how weird this shit looks, right? Like, this isn't something you just sketch up and just hand to a factory and say, make this. There's so much thought and engineering and problem solving that has to go into figuring out how exactly you accomplish this beluga hump sort of shape, this heel shape, right? This collar, the fit, the construction of it, the outsole, how it's cemented to the upper. There's so much stuff, and it's not like just a one size fits all solution or just like apples and oranges. It really does take, you know, work, and that work requires experience to be able to do that. So a factory, very easily you give them an idea or a crazy shoe you sketch on a piece of paper, just laugh in your face and say, fuck no, like we don't know, like I'm not building this, because they don't know how to do it, because that's the easy out for them, is to say, oh, this is impossible, can't do it. What we do is we make the impossible possible, right? So like when we're building a shoe, we are solving that problem through making, and as we solve that problem through making and through developing it, we can then go back to our manufacturing partner whose job is to scale it and say, this is how you do it, right? So like what you're doing is you're giving them the keys to the car, the keys to the ignition, and at least getting them to the starting line where they can't deny you and say, no, this is impossible. Say it is possible because we just fucking did it. Like, and this is how it's done, right? So that's the genesis of the lab and the way that it works. Now there's a business model that comes along with that, but from a pure like creative and functionality and building footwear perspective, that's what Factory Lab
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Aman, you're gonna love the next one I'm gonna pull out. Can you guess which one it is?
I don't, but I'm excited.
So this is one of your favorite footballers on a team that you support.
The Benzema, is that? No, that's not.
No,
Benzema.
that's Jalen. No.
Which one is this?
That's Jalen Ramsey's
from the
Jalen Ramsey.
from the Dolphins.
but you know, so you like Jalen? You like
Yeah,
Jalen? Yeah.
Whoa.
So this is the Jalen Ramsey football cleat, the JR1. He wore this last season. This is really interesting because, you know, I have a background in performance footwear and creating shoes for elite athletes. You know, I've worked with guys like Allen Houston and Gary Sheffield and Jose Bautista. These are like really like top tier elite athletes and building them performance footwear. Jalen and I met a couple years ago. He had just won the Super Bowl with the LA Rams. He wanted to create his own shoe and have his own football cleat to wear. Didn't want to sign with a brand. And he asked me to help him do it. And we were able to do that. And the thing that's unique about this shoe compared to other football cleats that players wear is that this was cast molded for his foot. So we molded.
Awesome.
So we molded. You take a mold of the foot, and then you use the data from that mold to build the last. The last is the shape that you build the shoe around, right? So it's like a sort of generic. So the way shoes are built is they use generic last, right? And that's based off of like, you know, the average measurements depending on the geography or the market that you're in. And then that's why like you probably wear one size in Nike and another size in Puma and another size in Adidas because they all have their own last systems, right? And it's also strategic because like if you know what size you wear in one brand, you're more likely to just stay with that brand instead of going outside. So there's no There's no like system to it. Everyone does whatever the fuck they want to do.
Yeah.
But the real way that it should actually be done is everyone should have their own custom last for their own feet. But that's just not the world that we live in. But in the case of an athlete, someone specifically like Jalen Ramsey, who makes over $100 million playing football, he should 100% have something like this. And guess what? He didn't, right? Like he was wearing the same shit that like a high school football player was wearing, and he shouldn't. The guy's making so much money. Right? Like you don't put shitty tires on a Formula One car. So why would you do the same thing to an athlete that's making $100 million or more, right? So my thought was like, well, I can do this for you. Let's do it. We go down this whole process. And like, for me, it's very simple. Listen to the athlete. Jalen is telling me what he wants and what he needs and what he requires as a player. And he's been playing football since he was 5 years old. Yeah. He knows his body better than anybody. He knows what he needs out there. And that's what we did. And we had a conversation, and the biggest thing was the cleat studs on the bottom and the positioning of them. And he had a lot of input on that. That was all his. That was all his thing. He was like, I break like this when I'm running, when I'm doing this, and when I'm defending a receiver. This is the way I like to move. And I took that information and came up with that pattern based on what he shared.
Yeah, that's cool because he is a defensive player. So, I mean, he would have to stop and change direction a lot more in reaction to what someone else was doing. Right? So,
exactly. So, think about think about it from a confidence standpoint. I was just telling someone this the other day, right? Like if Jalen Ramsey is out on the NFL football field and he's got a cleat that's like made for him, molded to his feet, feels great on him, and he's defending like a guy who doesn't have that. Like just the confidence advantage alone, he's gonna have that, right? I have something that you don't. And guess what? We built the shoe for Jalen. We tested it with the NFL. It actually ranked top 5 amongst all the cleats that they tested last year, including Nike and Adidas. And so it passed with flying colors. And Jalen had one of the best years that he ever had on the NFL football field. And he told everyone that these are the best. these are literally the best football cleats I've ever played in my entire career. That's what he said.
Is this would you say your favorite collab shoe? Or is there something more fun that you've worked on before?
Oh no, the duck boot. Right now.
Okay.
But that's important to me too, because like that's where my passion started.
Yeah, from a performance
standpoint. And there's something just really special about like turning on the TV and watching the game and being able to see Jalen Ramsey like doing his thing in a cleat that we worked on together and we built. So so I would say that's definitely one of my favorites for different reasons. Because it's hard to build like performance footwear for an athlete. I mean, just, and again, I've done this a million times, but it still doesn't mean I'm not anxious watching those games, right? Like you're watching the games and you're just like, okay, like, is it gonna, like, just like, don't let anything go wrong. And then, but then I just have to remind myself, trust the process, trust your expertise and what you put into this shoe. And sure enough, and it'd be fine every time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Like you said, athletes do need like a specific type of shoe. Like Zion Williamson, for example, keeps breaking his shoes when he plays in the game. So I think he would benefit from like a more heavy duty, like locked in kind of shoe.
Let him know,
Yeah, I mean, shout out Zion Williamson, man.
Hey, listen, if we're doing if we're doing pitches, Zion or anybody on the basketball court, also the football players, like soccer players out there, baseball, you want a shoe, holla at your boy.
Sprinters,
shout out
sprinters, whatever. Anyone who wants a shoe, DM me and let's talk.
We're in India, man. You got to make cricket shoes.
We'll love that.
Yo, that's true.
We'll love that. Let's get that popping.
Virat.
What's up, who's Virat signed to these days?
Puma.
He's still Puma. He's he's lifetime Puma though.
But so those aren't for sale. Those are just for.
Well, these are specifically just for the athlete. That doesn't mean that they won't be commercial at some point in time. But what's ended up happening as a result of us doing this cleat for Jalen is other players have been coming to us, right? So like it's just a matter of time, I think, before we figure out what the commercial strategy is. But pretty much the way that it works is the players compensate us or they pay us to build the cleats for them. Because it's a health and safety matter. And also what we learn is that the players, it's just like completely tax writable, so they can write this off as a. So if they have a LLC or a business set up, they could actually write this off as a business expense because it's a piece of equipment that they need in order to do their job, right? So like, so also another little caveat that we can deploy also as well with these guys that we're working with. But yeah, the goal is at some point to commercialize the cleats, but right now the primary focus is just like getting the cleats on the players and continuing to make give them a better health and safety choice.
Of course.
For sure. A lot of performance is confidence, and since they're playing on turf, which a lot of athletes have been super against because there've been a lot of ACL, Achilles tears, having something specifically designed for your level of performance is probably huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we went to your Instagram and we collected all these photos that we want to ask you about. And you're talking about the duck boots. This was like the first thing I saw of yours, which is you at Lakers courtside with NLE Chopper wearing the duck boots. What is the story like? And what is the inspiration behind the duck boots? Because to me, I was a big Sesame Street fan growing up. I saw that shit. I was like, that's the Big Bird shoe. That's the Big Bird shoe. So what
That's cool. I like that. I like the Sesame Street vibe. Well, I mean, I'll start with the photo. NLE is great, man. He's such a good kid. I genuinely love that kid and his mom. His mom's in the photo too. That's her on the on the left. And they just been great. I met them earlier this year and like we hit it off right out the gate. You know, they're of Jamaican descent. My family's of Jamaican descent, and that really kind of connected us. But, you know, once I started hearing Chopper's story and he started telling me about like, you know, how he was talking to brands and then they kind of stepped away from him because he got into a little bit of trouble when he was younger, like, and they didn't come, like, and his star just continued to rise. He just thought like, what the hell's going on? And then I ended up meeting his stylist through a mutual friend, and she came by and I gave her my whole story and showed her the lab and the space, and she was like, "Oh my God, like Chopper needs to see this. Like y'all need to meet like ASAP." And he ended up coming by like a month later, and it kind of we all hit the ground running from there. And just the inspiration behind the boot, I wanted to create something that so, if you just Google duck boot, like that duck boot's been around forever, right? Like every brand from LL Bean to Nike, everyone has done their own take on it or has tried their own take on it. And I wanted to take a crack at like the factory lab take on it, right? Like taking the extreme shapes or what I've learned in the shoe business in terms of development and really pushing the boundaries on design and like taking a form factor like the duck boot and like applying that philosophy to it and came up with this.
That's awesome.
That's cool, and NLE was just like the perfect partner for it because he's an incredible he just has such great energy. He's just like a natural promoter of anything. The guy can sell he could sell, like ice to an Eskimo. Like if he really wanted to, like he knows his stuff. But aside from that, he's just an incredible human being and a fantastic person. I was just talking to him yesterday. He's just a great guy. Good kid. I love being around him. Even though I'm like old enough to be his dad, but like we make a good team. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I want to take it all the way back. This was you with the first shoe you designed for New Balance.
Yeah.
For New Balance?
Yeah. Wow. That's a good picture. Yeah. That was 2002 or 2003.
Crazy.
I think it was.
Oh, wow. That's when you were in your 20s?
Yeah. Or I wouldn't even think I was 20 yet, bro.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, I was. Yeah, no, I was. I was like 21 or 22.
Damn.
Amazing.
Yeah, I was probably like NLE's age in there, which Chopper's 21 right now. So first shoe I ever designed. This was cool because this was the first time, I've been sketching shoes like for all these years prior to that, right? In my, like, as I told the story earlier about East Bay Magazine and drawing and all the stuff at home. This was the first time I ever drew something and designed something on paper and then actually saw it as a physical shoe.
That's crazy.
So like that shoe has a lot of significance. I still have that pair. It's in my office and factory lab in a glass box.
That's awesome.
And it's like a little yellowed now and stuff, but it's still the original shoe. But yeah, so when I see that photograph, it just kind of, I don't know, it just reminds me of like why I was doing all this to begin with, is that like, and getting to that point and like holding this thing in my hands that like I designed on a piece of paper and actually like having it made for the first time.
It's incredible that you managed to do that by 21 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. Thank you.
This is crazy. And so moving on from that, I want to talk about another pair of shoes that I honestly iconic to us, like when we were growing up, is the Supreme New York slides.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. No, for sure. Dude.
Right, Supreme was like one of those brands for at least for us, I guess, living in India, was like the one like streetwear brand that was like, this is the brand to get. Right, they fucking slapped that logo over anything, and the kids would come to school with like Supreme stickers over their laptop. And you know, I think this is really the mold for the modern day like branding on slides. We see this a lot.
Yeah.
What is the story behind this, and how did this come about?
Yeah, so Supreme wanted to do their own. I think up until this point, any footwear that they had done, it was in collaboration with another brand.
Right.
So this was their first attempt at doing a shoe or a piece of footwear that was just independently Supreme.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to do a slide.
Yeah.
So they had reached out. And at the time, I'm doing my stuff overseas, and I'm kind of like I'm like if you wanted to get if you knew, you knew at the time. So it's like, if you wanted to get like a shoe made or something, it was like, yo, go holler at Omar. Like he could, he'll figure it out. Like this is what he does. Like he's in China, he's in Europe, he's here, he's there, he's doing the stuff. So, they actually had some sketches laid out where they just wanted to create, like, they were like, yo, we want to do like our own, like Adidas slide, but like Supreme, like across that reads from one strap to the next. We want to do black and red. We want to make 10,000 pairs, 5,000 black, 5,000 red. It's going to be, there's going to be a D2C launch component to it, but the rest are going to be for retail across their 4 stores in Tokyo, LA, New York, and London. Ended up doing that project, and ended up being a big hit. I think they sold out in less than like 15 minutes.
That's iconic.
I mean, all over,
I know Supreme through that.
Yeah,
Like that's so iconic to me.
Yeah, and they never came out with them again since. So that was it was a June 2014, I believe, is when they launched.
10 years ago.
Yeah,
10 years ago.
And then the next thing I feel like we have to talk about, you're back in India. This is you with your colleagues.
Oh yeah,
That's a good one.
Look at
That's
that.
a good pick.
This is in Haryana.
This is in Haryana.
That's wild.
Yo, shout out Haryana, man.
Yeah, how did you end up in India? And
Oh man. So I was, I did a lot of work in a lot of stuff actually here in India. So I start even before Lotto. I did a little bit of work with a little bit of design work with Bata.
Oh, amazing.
Did some Bata
that's
stuff.
crazy. What did you do with them?
A little bit of just like some open toe shoes and some really like simple stuff.
Do you know the history of Bata? We all, I think, all the schools we went to, we did a compulsory shoe to buy it as part of the school uniform. So we've all worn Batas growing up.
Yeah, like all our lives,
Wow.
man. And the white canvas ones, the black
black
ones.
ones.
Shout
Black
out Bata, bro.
I love Bata.
And then one of the only shoe museums in the world. I don't know if you guys know this, is in Toronto, Canada. It's called the Bata Shoe Museum. It's in Toronto. It's the wife of, I guess, Mr. Bata, but she's since passed. Obviously, right? Like I think like. I can't remember the exact dates. I'm terrible with it. But anyway, this museum exists. I was there last year.
That's crazy.
And a friend of mine is like the curator of it and runs it. I've actually sent them, they have like a whole sneaker section. So I've sent them a few of our shoes. I sent them some Yeezys,
Amazing.
like just to kind of like have in their like archive. But they have this whole like vault, like underground, where they have all like the biggest collection of moccasins like in the world,
No
like
way.
moccasins from like all these random countries. 'Cause that's the thing. One of the things I didn't know about moccasins is that they like everyone has their own version of it. Like there's an Indian moccasin, there's like a Siberian moccasin, there's like, an Alaskan moccasin. There's like all different kinds. But it's Bata, and then like I designed for Relaxo shoes a little bit also as well.
crazy.
And then I think like through those networks, then like Lotto found out about me through, it was their mother company, SSIPL, and they own like licenses for Nike, Adidas, and Nike, Puma, and then Lotto. And they had the creative control over Lotto. And they had reached out and asked if I'd be interested in coming on board as their creative director, but also like their sample room and like kind of semi like factory manager. So that was the sample room staff. So all the shoes that I was working on and designing, that was the team that was actually making them.
How long were you there for in Haryana?
2 years.
2 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
2
you went,
years.
bro. He literally went from there to like the Yeezy stuff.
It's amazing that you
Haryana
are
to fucking Calabasas.
you are the link between Kanye and Haryana.
That, I didn't think about it like that, but yeah, for sure, definitely.
Oh my god.
And then this photo, I think, just wholesome, just good vibes. You know, we love people in love.
Yeah.
How do you meet your wife? What is that like?
Yeah, my wife Allison, we met online, like, gosh, I don't even know how long ago, 15 years ago or something like that. We've been married for 8. This year it'll be 8. So we've known each other. We've been together for a long time. That was our wedding day, obviously, in Brooklyn. Great day. It started off real shitty with the rain, but then it cleared up just in time and had this wonderful sunset. But no, she's been super supportive of me from day one. Kind of knows like the deal that like, you know, like I travel a lot. We thought all of that was gonna end when we moved to California. And I wasn't like in India and moving around as much as I did. But then that all changed when Kanye West bought his ranch in Wyoming, and then I had to travel there literally every week. But no, she's been awesome, man. Great support system and super, you know, I can't say enough positive things about how supportive she's been, and I try to be as supportive as I can.
That's
with
beautiful,
her
man.
too as well.
That's awesome.
And so, this is like kind of a hot debate online. Do you think it's acceptable to wear sneakers for your wedding? Also, what sneakers did you wear at your wedding?
Hell yeah, you wear sneakers at your wedding.
What did you wear, man?
I wore my own shoes.
Yeah.
I wore my own Omar Bailey. So before I started with YEEZY, I had my own brand called Omar Bailey Footwear, and they were exclusively sold through Level Shoes in the Dubai Mall.
Oh, amazing.
And they were made and manufactured in the U.S. And I knew that I wanted to get them into the Gulf region because they were high price point because they were expensive to make in the U.S. So I felt like the Gulf like made a lot of sense for it in terms of market. And I thought, you know, being that my name is Omar, that kind of helped me too, you know, as well. And it did. I mean, you gotta be as strategic as you can be. You know, I had to consider all the factors. But because I was coming out here so much, or I was spending so much time in India, it was easy for me to get to Dubai.
Yeah.
So I would go to Dubai, or like when I would, you know, I was here for, like I said, for like 2 years, but, you know, I would go home, like I'd get to go back home for like a week every 3 months or something like that. So when I would come back, I remember one particular trip I was coming back, I reached out to Level Shoes and said, hey, I'm a fan of your store. I have my own brand, Omar Bailey Shoes. I pass through Dubai quite a bit. I would love to just like show you guys what I'm working on. And they said, yeah, come on in. And that was how the whole thing started. So I wore my own shoes to my wedding.
That's
dope.
That's such a flex.
Yeah.
And you said, you know, you had to start going to Wyoming. Jay loves this photo, so I had to bring it out. You and Cody with the car. What was
yeah.
this?
Oh
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
those are like my favorite behind the scenes. of that time.
You found all the good
It's like
pictures.
super like futuristic shit. Bro. I
Yeah,
love
that thing is called a Ripsaw. And it's basically a 2-seater tank with a Ferrari engine. That's like the only way. That's the only way I can
crazy,
describe
man.
it.
That's
That thing goes
crazy.
like, I think that thing does like 125
Yeah, it's like a
miles an hour,
Batmobile almost.
like
Yeah.
on like
Did you
on
drive it?
terrain. I didn't drive it. Only a couple people were allowed to drive it. But like I was a passenger in it. And honestly, like I would have been terrified to have driven it. It was just too like if I would have broke it or did something wrong, I did not want to get stuck. That thing was like $500,000 for that thing. But no, he had a bunch of toys on the ranch. He had that, and then he had the Sherps, which I'm sure you guys have seen those. It's the ones that look more like a box, and they had the big wheels on them. He had like a dozen of those, like literally a dozen of those, and they could go like land in the water, so you could just drive them right into the lake. And then they would just like, and they would start to operate like a boat. So yeah, there's a lot of toys and stuff on the ranch, including like
No, I mean that's
go-karts.
literally what it was, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a creative's dream.
Yeah.
Almost. I remember that's when he made his album Ye, and he also produced like a bunch of albums.
Yeah,
as well
yeah, he
in
did
that
the Nas.
phase of his
Yeah,
career.
I was
feel like
there. I got a funny story actually about that. A good one that I think your viewers would love to hear is that was when I was there. That was the Jesus is King phase.
Yeah.
So that was when he was like,
Right
like
after
he was
that.
like really into like the religious thing, and he didn't swear and curse, and if you curse, like you got in trouble. There was a lot of stuff like that. I think he kept like a curse scorecard or something, or people. But this is the vibe that he was in, and he was doing the Sunday services,
Yeah.
which was dope because I got to go to a bunch of those, and those were really cool. Going to the Sunday services and like. I got to experience kind of both sides of them. I got to go to a couple of the ones where they were much like when they were really small and intimate, and it was only like friends and family, and then the choir like kind of spread out amongst. And then I got to see what it looked like on a large scale when he was doing them in arenas,
Right.
and like a bunch of people would come, like thousands and thousands of people would show up to watch. So, and they were all special, in their own right. I'm trying to pick my train of thought back up. What was the picture again?
It was you on the ripsaw. Or
The
whatever it's
ripsaw?
called.
Oh, that's right. And the
Yeah.
story, the story, there's a story I want to tell. So one of my first trips to Wyoming, this is an awesome story. I'm in, so the hotel that I lived in is called the Best West. It was the Best Western, Best Western Premier Ivy. Shout out to the Best Western, but it ain't like,
you guys.
it ain't the Four Seasons, right? But this one in particular in Wyoming was like the nicest one, the
Right.
Best Western Premier Ivy.
The best Western.
The best Western, exactly. And this is where I lived. Like this ended up becoming my home. The staff there basically became like my family, my adopted family. When I lived there Monday through Friday, and then I would travel back to LA on the weekends. But one of my first trips there, I'm in the Best Western. I walk into the cafe area to go sit and have breakfast, and Kanye's in there, and he's sitting down. And he's having breakfast, and then he sees me, and he just kind of nods, says, "What's up?" He's like on the phone doing something. And then I'm sitting in the booth, like right next to him, and then I'm eating. And then he comes up to me, and he's like, he's like, what you doing today? And I was like, well, I'm trying to figure out how to build you a factory right here. But, that wasn't my response, but that's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, just doing some work today. He was like, and then you just asked me these like very like specific questions, but like, I didn't know where they were going. He's like, "You got a car?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a car." And he's like, "Okay." And he's like, I need you to follow me somewhere. I'm like, "Okay, all right." And, you don't ask, you just say, "Okay." You just nod, "Okay." I said, all right. And I said, "All right, let me just wrap up my breakfast." And like, he said, "Okay, I'm going to be in the black Raptor outside." So when we were in Wyoming, he had 8 Ford F-150 Raptor pickup trucks, but they were all wrapped in like matte black finish. So like if you saw a matte black Ford Raptor driving around Wyoming, you knew it was like a part of the YEEZY crew. It was like the YEEZY like staple vehicle.
Right.
At this time, I wasn't driving one of those. I was just driving a rental car. This is like my first trip out there. So I'm still getting the lay of the land. So anyway, so he's waiting for me outside in the driveway of the Best Western. The best Western. And then I get in my car and I'm following him. We're driving and I don't know where we're going. I'm just following him. And then I don't know, something told me to just like call my wife, and I just call and say, "Hey," it's like I'm following Kanye West. I don't know where we're going, but like I feel like you should know that. And then I'll keep you posted on what ends up happening the rest of the day. So we end up driving and it's getting more and more remote where we're going. And I'm like, "Oh, we must be going out to the ranch." Cause at this point I haven't been out there. I didn't know where it was or anything like that. And we're going, and then he's driving in his truck, and then all of a sudden he just like jumps off the road and he jumps off the road and like the off-roading in his truck, which it was built for that. Yeah. But I'm like in like a Honda Civic that cannot do that. And so I'm just staying on the road and I'm following him, and I'm hoping that it like somehow turns into another road. And it did, right? And it ended up being the entrance to the ranch. And I follow him into the ranch, and then there's a big sign that says like Westlake Ranch with the fish on it. And then I follow him, and then we end up parking at like this really small, like sort of like cabin house. He gets out, I get out. There's like a couple other people who showed up also, and I'm just standing there. I'm not asking any questions. I'm just following him. And then he knocks on the door, knocks on the door, and then Fonz Bentley, I don't know if you know who Fonz Bentley is, but he's like this entertainer back in the, like this really talented like dancer and like musician. He used to do a lot of stuff with Outkast, and you'd always see him pop up in different videos and stuff like that. So Fonz like opens up the door, and I'm like, oh, like, okay, this is interesting. And then we go upstairs into what is his recording studio. And it's a very modest house. The recording studio probably wasn't that much bigger than this room. Maybe a little bit bigger than this room. There was a big like open. There was a big like window where it was just a view of the mountains. He had a keyboard, a screen set up, and his music sound engineer was there. And then and I sat down, and then he just like looked at me. He was like, "Yo, I got some new music I want you to hear. I'm just curious what you think." I'm like, "Really?" Like, oh, okay, cool. And literally for the next 3 hours, just sat there and just like jammed out on like unreleased like Kanye West music for the next 3 hours. So that was that's probably one of my favorite Kanye stories.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And now you're gonna sing some of them for us.
I was just like so overwhelmed and just like trying to just take it all in. And obviously I couldn't like take no pictures or record, anything as much as I wanted to, but it's like, oh God, I can't. Like, it's like, okay. And then once I just accepted that, I said, you know what, I'm just gonna like my eyes are my camera here, and I'm just gonna take this all in and just just have that memory forever.
That's amazing.
That's insane. What a story, man.
I mean, I'd love to play you some unreleased music. you can record it.
It's good company, right? Adi and Kanye. But I guess you've worked with a lot of cool people. I told you this downstairs. Kareem Benzema was like a big part of my like sports journey. And this is him holding the Omar Bailey shoes.
Yeah.
Right? This is what you sold in Dubai.
Yep.
Just because we're talking about it, I want to show that off. I have a bunch of like cool people that you've met. Tim Cook.
Oh
yeah, Tim Apple. Oh yeah, for sure. Tim was cool, man. He pulled up. That was actually Jalen Ramsey's Super Bowl party.
Oh, awesome.
And Tim Cook walked in, and I was like, what the fuck is that, Tim Cook? And I'm looking around like, does anyone else recognize him? Or am I the only person that recognized him? He didn't have no security. He just rolled up in there, grabbed had a glass of wine, and I said, "Oh man, let me go chat it up with him real quick." And went in and chat with super nice guy. Like I think I pitched to him like doing an Apple sneaker or something like that. But yeah, we'll hopefully circle back around to that one of these days. Tim, if you're watching, holla at me.
That's cool. You got to shoot your shot.
Yeah. Hey, I'll shoot my shot all day, all day.
Questlove.
Questlove. That was a fun project. Yeah, we did a little custom YEEZY 750 for Quest. Quest is a good dude, man. He's good people. Yeah, shout out to Quest.
Terry Crews,
man. Terry, I just ran into him at a Rams game this season, and we were chatting for a little bit. He was on the sideline, and I was down there before the game and ran up to him. Terry was so cool, man. I remember he came to my factory I had in New York, and he was just so inquisitive, and he was just asking me so many questions about like how I got into it. He just took like a genuine interest in and just wanted to know about me, and I'll never forget that about him. And that's what I told him when I saw him, man. I was like, I'll never forget that day.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Terry's good people.
And then the last one, and maybe the one that again Jahangir was most excited by, Guy Fieri.
Oh yes, this caught my eye.
That was random. That was in Cody, Wyoming. So this is in the Best Western. This is this is in the Best Western. So Guy was there, and he was he was there. He was coming into the restaurant when I was leaving for breakfast, and then I just said hello to him, and then he was curious. Like then he said something like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I asked him what he was. I asked him if he was here for like something with Kanye, because usually like if you've seen famous people in Wyoming, like usually 90% of the time like it had something to do with Kanye West. Like even when I would get on the planes from Denver on the connecting flights and you just see like random people, like it was very clear who was going there to see Kanye, even like if they weren't famous, just the way people were dressed, right? Because people were cowboys and plaid stuff, then all of a sudden someone like me would show up with like gold chains and earrings and this or whatever, and it was like, okay, that guy's here for Kanye. But yeah, he was there, and I was like, oh, are you here doing anything with Kanye? He was like, no. He's like, oh, I heard he's out here. I was like, yeah, I actually work for him. You know, I'm doing this, that, and the third. And he was like, I'm actually out here hunting. Like, I come out here all the time.
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. So, yeah, so we took that picture together.
Yeah, that's like, what I love is that he has the Flavor Town Hollywood sign t-shirt on. That's great.
Yeah, he wasn't there working.
Yeah.
Like, he was just there. But I guess he always got to promote. I mean, look at him. He doesn't even need to wear the shirt. He's just promoting he's very
his
unique.
His
look is very iconic. Yeah,
The guy, I'm looking forward to the custom Guy Fieri sneakers.
Yeah, Guy, if you're listening, holla at me, man. Like, we met, we had a good chat. Like, I'm ready to make you some shoes. Let's do it.
But yeah, that's basically it. That's
Omar, like, we could go on talking to you about this stuff for hours, but unfortunately time holds us. But before you leave, before we end the episode, I would love to get your empty shelf item.
Yeah. So here, so check this out. So I brought a little something for you guys. Thought it would be it's very fitting and appropriate.
He's so disappointed that you didn't reach for the shoes. Man.
Even better.
Sick.
So check this out. Wait, let me pop this open so you can see.
That's cool.
Is it? It's a keychain.
It's pretty sick. It's
really cool, actually, and we'll pass it around. But here, this is for you guys. So
that's awesome.
little mini,
That is sick, dude.
Amazing.
little mini duck.
Wow, thank you so much, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Omar.
Yeah, that's
Ariana,
sick.
don't smell it.
You know, when you were passing around the shoes, both Sid and Ariana were...
It's the fresh
It's
shoe.
the smell. It's the
It's the
smell.
fresh shoe smell, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man, you check that out, man.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, here.
Ah, shit. So what did you get us for the shot? Never gets old.
Every time.
The one time you won't do it, it means that you really hate the That's sick, man.
Yo, sniff that shit, bro.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Where should we put this? Okay, let's do it here.
How about on top of
I
the painting?
obviously, of course.
Top of the no,
No, I
leave
won't
it
fit.
forward.
Can I get? Oh yeah, no, it'll probably fall.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do that.
Yeah, that's well the.
That's good.
Can you tease what's next for Factory Lab? Are you working with anyone cool? What's up next?
Oh yeah, we got a bunch of stuff going on. So we're gonna be launching the well, I don't know if I can say what color, but we're gonna be launching another version of the duck boot
Awesome.
very soon, very very soon.
Also, and this is like dead stock. You don't really need it. I'll keep it.
We're launching a new color. We're gonna be launching at least two new. We're gonna be launching 2 new colors with Choppa.
Awesome.
Before the end of this year. The first one's coming really soon. We're gonna be launching the Stomper boot, which is there's a brown one, and you can pull that out super quick. This boot is super dope.
Oh, dude, that's nice.
Yeah,
Low
sorry, I don't
key.
know
How do
how
we
we
not
did pull-
mention this before?
So this is coming out later this year also as well. So we're dropping this with Simba, young rapper, Simba, great kid, and we're doing this with him.
I know
Also
Simba.
as well, Simba's on the rise, man.
Yeah.
He's been on the rise. He's a huge star, and he's just gonna become bigger and
Is he
bigger.
British?
No. He's from the Bay Area. He's American.
Okay, then maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
And but he so we're doing that with him. We're launching that color and the black one. We are working with Shiloh Sanders, Deion Sanders' son over in Colorado.
really?
So
Wow,
we're launching
amazing.
actually. There's a Night Runner. It's a black shoe in there that's kind of shiny. Yep.
Whoa.
We're actually
Whoa.
launching this shoe
that is
with
sick,
him
dude.
also as well.
That's pretty cool, man.
So
You gonna
we're-
make him some cleats as well?
You know, he's a little tied up with Nike right now through his pop. So like we'll get to that later. But we're doing this with him.
That's awesome.
We're doing this with him right now. And yeah, man. And then we got about half a dozen NFL players that we're building cleats for this year.
Any names you can reveal?
Trent Williams, he was like our guy. Like we did some stuff with T earlier this year, leading into the Super Bowl. Trayvon Walker. There's a few others that were out there. So yeah, no, the cool thing, man, is like I think a lot of people really respect and admire what we're doing, and like, and it's just like I feel like a kid, like I really do, because like I'm like it almost is like a movie, because I'm getting to meet just like all these like awesome people that like I grew up watching, or like I'm the same age as, and like and becoming friends with these guys, or them seeing myself. Like the other day, it's just so random. Like I was in New York, it was a few months ago. I was in New York, and I was at the Soho House in Brooklyn, and this guy, and I'm leaving, and this guy's a little dark in there, and this guy's walking up to me, and it's like this tall figure, and he looks over, he's like, yo, Omar, he's like, man, I love what you're doing, I seen the duck boot, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, oh my God, like, who is this? I look up, it's Carmelo Anthony.
Oh, no.
Whoa.
So I'm like, oh shit, I'm like, Carmelo Anthony knows who I am, like, that's pretty
sick,
cool.
that's sick.
And he's like, so that was super dope, man. So it's just really cool being able to like it's like I don't take it for granted at all, like these moments, you know. Like I got invited to the ESPYs, so I'm going to ESPYs next week when I get back to LA. So like I'm super like it's just cool. It's cool, man.
A lot of
really
exciting
cool.
things on the horizon.
Yeah.
I mean, we
And
feel
guys-
the same way, man, because this show, you know, allowed us to meet you and meet really
Yeah.
cool people, and yeah, that's what's up, man.
And that's
Thank you for spending your time
Really?
with us.
Yeah, man. No, I'm glad to be here. I'm really happy to be back in India. You know, it feels familiar in a good way. And and I look forward to coming back. Hopefully I don't have to wait 6 more years to come back again.
Now this is awesome because you got to do a lot of big things. You did the SPs and the show.
Yeah.
So close together.
It's hard. It's hard
Guys,
to pick one.
if y'all want to tune into everything Omar has going on, we're going to link everything of his in the description. Go show Factory Lab some love. Go show Omar some love. Thank you so much for being on the show. Any last words before we wrap?
Man, last words. I'll just say, you know, believe in yourself, shoot for the stars. And if no one has anything good to say, then just don't listen to them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks to you guys.